Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to join us today as we um, review Predl's first webinar of 2025. Today, we plan on discussing Predl's large wastewater structure rehabilitation solutions. Our goal for this presentation is to provide useful information for consideration when planning a large wastewater structure rehab. So, a brief introduction for any of you who are not familiar with us. My name's Jennifer. I am the business office manager here at Predl Inc., located in Jasper, Georgia. Predl was founded in 1992 by Manfred Predl. Our headquarter and first production facility is located in Germany. We have additional production facilities in Austria and Poland. The location here in Jasper, Georgia is the newest. We've been here for about 2 years now. So today's agenda, we're going to start by discussing the current situation on the market, the available solutions, and some of the pitfalls that we see. Then we will go into the technical features of Predl's FRP panels, followed by data preparation. So you can see um, how we collect the necessary data and do the design of the panels or the particular rehab system that we're recommending. Then we'll go through sort of a step-by-step project review of a project recently completed and installed in Bullhead, Arizona. From there, we're going to go on to talk about some different application possibilities with our panels, as well as rehab with Predl's Core Protect liner. And then we're going to end today with the Q&A session. And I'm excited to say that I've got Matthias Predl joining me today for that. So I do encourage you to please use the Q&A section throughout this presentation. As a question comes to mind, feel free to add it in there, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions we can. We will also be sure to send out a recording of this webinar and a written out response to all the questions and answers as a follow-up. So currently the options for large wastewater structures is somewhat limited. We continue to see bare concrete structures go into the ground, and we see a variety of coatings used as either a primary form of protection or a means of rehabilitation. As I understand it, there are some other panel systems on the market. However, there are some significant differences between those and the composite panels we offer. So there's plenty of evidence to show that just in a few years' time, bare concrete and coatings can and often fail. It's important to recognize that corrosion in these structures occurs not just above the line of sewage, but also below. Um, we have this corrosion happening in two ways. One, bacterial hydrogen sulfide, and then the other, sulfuric acid. This process, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, is often referred to as microbial induced corrosion, or MIC. So MIC is a process in which sulfates in the sewage is altered by bacteria, causing the formation of hydrogen sulfide. And we're all familiar with that rotten egg kind of smell. So once this has happened, the sulfur is further oxidized and it eventually turns into sulfuric acid. So while many coatings have exceptional corrosion resistance, it's only as good as the technician who's applying the material. And if it's not applied perfectly, you can almost guarantee failure. So in these larger structures, we find that the area in which the water level sits is is often the most damaged. The issues we see is that there's this constant fluctuation in the height of the water line. And so we're kind of encouraging a dual attack. We've got sulfuric acid, we have hydrogen sulfide, but then we have this water level moving up and down, which is further eroding that weakened structure through the turbulence of the water movement and changes in pressure. So, to repair this type of damage and prevent future corrosion, we really need a durable and robust rehabilitation solution. So, another situation that um, we see and hear of often, is that people are lining only the part of the structure that they know will be exposed to the air. They feel that lining below the water level um, is not necessary, and that really is a mistake. So if the bottom isn't lined, and we can see here through this visual, so if we don't have the bottom lined, we have no optimal seal between the lower edge of the liner and that structure. And with that, we can't guarantee that the lower edge of that liner will not eventually succumb to infiltration. And once that infiltration occurs, as these water levels go up and down in the structure, so does the water behind that liner. And it's leading to infiltration um, in that backfilled concrete. So here you can see a structure that's been rehabilitated with Predl's FRP panels. Our panels are sealed from the floor all the way to the ceiling. This system is going to ensure that there are no future issues with back pressure um, over any lower exposed edges, because they don't exist in this system. So on the left is a structure immediately after install, and then on the right, a year later. One of the other distinctions of Predl's FRP panels is that they are in fact a structural panel. Other liners are not. So if you use a typical concrete protective liner in this kind of rehab, you're going to have to install formwork, as you can see here. The formwork can involve wood and metal. It takes a lot of time and it's a difficult process, but you have to do it to make sure your liner maintains its shape. So when we look at the Predl FRP panels, there's no formwork needed. Our panels used in conjunction with the substructure allows us to create a new wall using rigid panels which are self-supporting. So now we're going to talk a bit more about the technical features of the panels. So Predl has designed and manufactures our panels to each specific structure. There's no cookie cutter, one size fits all. Each panel is 15 millimeter thick fiberglass panel. They're light in weight, but strong and structural due to this honeycomb core that you can see here. The sanded back of the panels allow for a superior mechanical bond and monolithic bond to the concrete. So the inner layer of our panel is or our wastewater side is coated in vinyl ester resin. Vinyl ester resin is a high performance resin, meaning it's of the highest quality, and it has a broad range of chemical resistance. This resin can also tolerate higher temperatures, even those greater than 212 degrees. Furthermore, and another very important fact, is that we use ECR glass in the manufacturing of these panels. ECR glass is also of the highest quality and corrosion resistant. I did not realize until I started doing more research that not all glass is corrosion resistant. So that just makes this a very important point to understand. If you're using regular glass in the manufacturing of these, it can potentially absorb, expand, and corrode. Um, Cradle's FRP panels are the only ones that are manufactured by our proprietary process, which involves hand lamination and vacuum pressure pressing at 14 psi. This is an absolute crucial step in the manufacturing process because this is what ensures the high volume glass that's in the resin evenly saturates the panels. With this, it yields that high bending rigidity, which also ensures that we have no delamination of the layers. If this process is skipped, um, you just cannot effectively bond these various layers together. Overlapping the panels is another key technical feature to how our panels are assembled. So, through the process of overlapping the panels, which we can see here sort of highlighted in red where the overlaps occur here, we can ensure 100% that all of the edges are secure and sealed. Our overlapping process occurs in three steps. So the first, panels actually overlap with the substructure, and we seal in between those two overlap with Sikaflex, which is a polyurethane sealant. From there, so this is where we'd have our Sikaflex, and then from there we come in and we utilize a fiberglass reinforced putty to fill in any gaps. And finally, we hand laminate with 3 layers of glass and finish it with the corrosion resistant top coat. And here's another side view just to give you a better idea of how we go about that 3-point sealing system. So again, here's our substructure. We've secured it with a Hilti fastener. And then we've got our layers of Sikaflex here and here, where our panels are overlapping the substructure. Um, and then we come in with the putty and finally the lamination. Our FRP panels can be designed for straight walled structures as well as round structures. Again, the solutions we offer are highly engineered and they're tailored to meet your structure's specific needs. So we're going to walk through the process of data preparation, design, and installation of Cradle's FRP panel system, because I think this is really what's going to allow you to see that we offer not just a product, but a fully engineered solution. So as with most of our other rehab solutions, we begin by taking a 3D laser scan of the structure needing rehabilitation. We always ask that the structures be pumped down and reasonably clean because we can't scan through solids or liquids. However, we recognize in these large structures that's often not possible because these are usually in service up until the point we're ready to begin the rehab process. So with these types of structures, we also ask for a copy of the existing structure design that we then provide to our engineers who use in our design and evaluation process. So here you're able to see what our engineers create via the data from the scans. We refer to this as a mesh. It allows us to visualize all the areas of loss. Um, in this one in particular, you can see how the original structure is bellied out. We can see where bricks are lost, where grout is lost. And I realize that this is a manhole, not a large structure, but it just served as a great visual. So with this, we can evaluate the condition inside, but also obtain the precise measurements we need throughout. From this mesh, we can then design the liner that's required for that specific structure. Um, so not only do we use these scans to prepare the design of the rehab panel or liner system, um, this also allows us to evaluate the integrity of the structure itself. We always want to be able to make a recommendation as to the safety of sending a crew in that structure to begin working. So once we've got the design complete, we'll provide a rehabilitation proposal. And with this proposal, it comes our recommendation on the design of the panels and how those panels would be constructed. These blueprints are an easy to read and follow process, and it's all pretty straightforward. Here are just a few more detailed views of other aspects of the installation. Here we address how to connect where the pipe connections are, um, doing the connections up top, attaching the liner to the flat top. So once the design is complete and we're ready to move forward on the project, um, construction begins. Once we have everything prepared for that project, everything will be direct shipped to the job site. All the panels are going to have a label that identify the project name, number, and the panel number. And these numbers will correspond with those blueprints we provided. And this helps to make sure that um, everything is properly and easily placed during the installation process. In cases of severe corrosion, we may need to start the process in the structure by leveling the bottom. Um, but unfortunately, we often won't know until we get there to start because, as stated before, a lot of times these are in service up until time of installation. But our flex grout is a great solution for this. With our flex grout, which I'll talk about more in a little bit, um, but with that flex grout, it's highly flowable. It flows like water. It's self-leveling and it has a rapid set time. So if we do need to level out this bottom, it's a quick and easy process. Our panels are easily lowered through the opening of the structure. So if we know that we're designing these panels for a structure that will not have that lid removed or replaced, we're going to ensure that they can fit through whatever hatch or opening we have available to us. So before we start to put the panels up, we're going to install or fasten the substructure. You can see portions of it going up here. This substructure helps to ensure that we have proper spacing and it aids in the overlap of all of these joints. Again, that 3-point overlap and securing is extremely important in the application of these panels. With this, we're going to work from the bottom up, just like most other projects. We With the installation of these panels, we're going to install one level. One level is typically one row. Once that row is in, we're going to backfill with grout. And here you can just better see how we're affixing the panel to the substructure, utilizing the stainless steel Hilti fasteners. Another important point is that we do pre-drill the spots where you're going to need to fasten these panels. And again, because of this engineered process and the substructure provided, it allows for a smooth installation because your elements are fitting together perfectly. It goes together kind of much like a Lego design. So here you can see two aspects of joint sealing. In this corner, we're applying the Sikaflex or that polyurethane adhesive. Again, that's going between our substructure and our panel. And after that's been completed and fastened with the Hiltis, we're coming back and we're closing up that seam with the fiberglass reinforced putty. Now that we've closed the seams of that row, we begin mixing the flex grout. We do this on site. While the flex grout is not required, we do highly recommend using it. Here you can see we've got a very narrow space to backfill with the grout. Um, we want to maintain a quick pace, so utilizing a grout that has a quick set time, high flowability, it allows us to keep moving along, but it also helps to ensure that as we're backfilling, we're not creating any voids between the liner and the existing structure. This highly flowable grout is going to fill into all the available space. Just real quick on the flex grout, it's a FCC grout. It is shrink free. The pot life is only 3 minutes, so it's a you have to really work fast, maintain a quick pace. Otherwise, it's going to become too thick for you to pour it. It has a set time of 10 minutes and can be under load in as few as 30 minutes. There is some corrosion resistance that's built into this grout. Um, it's fiberglass fortified, and the fully cured PSI is over 7,200. And here you can see what it looks like when we're backfilling with this grout. Again, it really is pouring like water. Here is a section that's been backfilled and just set. So we've got the self-leveled grout up to the upper edge of the panel, our substructure in the background, and then you can see where we've got the fiber reinforced putty filling in those small gaps. So management of pipe connections with any installations, not a problem at all. We're going to make sure that we have the pre-cut holes in the panels, and we will prepare any prefabricated parts you may need to manage those connections, and those will be provided to you on site. So once the panels have been installed around the pipe, we're going to backfill as usual, fill that in with grout, and then easy enough to rough up the pipe. And we actually will laminate the panel to the pipe to ensure we have that good gas tight and watertight connection. And just another visual showing how we work in the sections. So this would have been section 1, installed and backfilled. On to section 2, all the way around, installed and backfilled, and just continuing to work our way up. Here you can see where, again, we're filling in every seam with that fiberglass reinforced putty, both at the ceiling, around the pipe connections, not just in between the panel joints. And here, doing that final layer of lamination across all seams. And also, this is a great visual to show you how how we would seal off at that hatch opening if we were not replacing the top. Um, we do finish with a top coat, has a chemical resistant resin in it, and that's also what has the pigment in it to match the panels. So that's why we no longer see the green everywhere. And with that, you now have a sealed system that's ready to go for decades to come. We've got the ceiling, the side view. And again, the structure 1 year after service. So, um, not only do we offer our traditional FRP panels for the straight walled structure or the radius structure, we can do them in flumes and all sorts of shapes and sizes. So these are a few projects that were actually done in Germany. Um, let's see. It, often again, precision is key. We will come in and do the laser scan to ensure that when we come in with these flumes, we've got a perfect fit. And they've had some interesting projects for sure. Um, this one was unique in that it was in a pump station and there was a shovel that would run up and down this flume to collect solids. And that shovel only had a few millimeters between itself and the flume. So for this, we had to create really thin panels. So we did them without the honeycomb core, and this is the completed structure. So again, it's not a one size fits all. We are um, excited to look at whatever your project is and see what we can come up with to meet your needs. So our honeycomb panels are also available with the polypropylene lining on them. With these PP panels, they are sealed with an overlapping extrusion weld along the joints. So it is an easier installation. We typically recommend those though for it's really ideal for small box structures where a single wall can be one panel. So in this case, this was a project in Austria, small box. Each wall and the floor is an individual panel, and we just have a single weld sealing up all of these seams. And then finally, our polypropylene core protect material. It is a non-structural liner, but it is still a great option when we have something that is less than 10 feet in diameter. So real quick, the PP Core Protect material, it's a copolymer polypropylene. It's a 3 millimeter thick liner that has chemical resistance from a pH of 2 to 12. It has great pull-out strength, testing it over 1,000 newtons per anchor. It has been back pressure tested to 1.5 bar. The anchors are placed at 38 per square foot and they're 13 millimeters high to help ensure we have a great bond to that concrete. And again, because of its corrosion resistance in nature, it has a lifespan of several decades. So we can pre-cut these liner sections. Um, everything's prepared just as we would do the FRP panels ahead of time. We would prepare these core protect segments ahead of time, cutting them out on the CNC router, um, butt welding or fusion welding those seams together, and it can easily be folded and inserted directly through whatever the available opening is of the structure. And I just want to show you, this was about a 10-foot diameter structure, and this was our hole that we had to work with. This again was another project out of Germany, but this was a pumping station located in somebody's small house. So it was imperative that this rehab happen. One, fully trenchless, and two, absolutely no disruption to the surrounding area because we were literally working inside somebody's house. Um, and another project utilizing the Core Protect liner. This highlights for you a little bit better how we go about supporting that liner to ensure it holds its shape while we're backfilling. In this case, they were replacing the flat top. Um, let's see. So here we can see better. We've got the EPS blocks that we cut and provide, as well as the expanding rings that we provide. Here you can see the anchors from the liner and the grout coming up to the edge. So it's just liner, support, backfill with grout, completed structure. In this case, they were able to do this rehab in just a couple of hours. And because the flat top was being replaced, we were able to provide the precaster, the manufactured flat top liner. He cast it in and ensured that we had that on the job site to place on top of the structure once we were done. That concludes our presentation on Predl's large wastewater structure rehabilitation. I'd like to thank you so much again for your time and participation today. I would like to let you know that we're attending several trade shows coming up. So if you happen to be at any of them, we'd love to have you stop by. We'll be in Indianapolis in February for both the MPCA show and the WET show. And then we'll be in Denver for the No Dig show end of March, start of April. So now we are going to move on to the Q&A portion of this presentation. Again, I have my colleague Matthias Predl here to assist me with this. Let's see, Matthias, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Wonderful.
My name is
Good.
Matthias Predl. Thanks for joining us today, and let's head to the questions.
Yes. So anybody else, if you do have any questions you want answered now, be sure to add those in. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to email me as well, and we can get answers out to you. But it looks like our first is there a hollow space between the panel and the existing structure's wall? If so, how much hydraulic pressure can the panels handle before flexing? Um, so I think this is so during the installation process, yes, we have a small space, but we fill that space with grout. Again, recommending utilizing that flex grout to fill all those spaces. We do not leave any hollow spaces at the end of that installation. Matthias, is there anything that you would want to add to that?
No, I think that's it, because we don't have hollow spaces behind the panels, so the panels will not flex after the installation and the backfilling process.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then our last would be our second and final question. Can you elaborate more on how you ensure there is a strong corrosion resistant bond with the FRP panels and other material, inlet, outlet pipe, bonding FRP to the PVC, HDPE, or RC pipes? And would the coating peel off in the future? Um, so one point I want to clarify, we don't use any sort of coating per se. We do use a gel coat, top coat, um, in some of these processes, but not what you would think of as a typical coating. And then, of course, we are using the PCR fiberglass and resins as well whenever we have to make these connections. So, if you want to talk some, Matthias, about that process of when you are doing those connections, that would be great.
So if we're having a pipe coming in or out, and the pipe is, for example, like a PVC pipe, the lamination is bonding really, really good to the PVC pipe. And if we are having other materials of pipes, we are having for every material a different transition strip, which is made out of cotton and also out of this material, what the pipe is out of. And so there's no problem for us to bond the lamination to the existing pipe, because we have this transition strip, which allows us to have a solid bond for the future, and it will not peel off in the future.
Okay. perfect. Uh-huh. Um, so I just had another question answered, and I'm not, it says, can you share typical cost for coating standard features such as a typical 18-inch manhole? Um, so again, uh, we're not coding, so I'm not sure if your question is more, I'm not quite sure what you're looking for there. And I'm thinking did you mean 18 foot rather than 18-inch? I'm not sure. So maybe if you could retype that one for me. Again, um, I'm just not sure exactly what you're looking for there. Sorry. All right. Well, I am looking. Okay. So James clarified, just looking for a standard manhole price. So um I want to say if we're talking just our FRP panels, I believe that we're looking at a square foot cost on average. And again, there's a lot of factors, so you can't take this for um as being the word, but somewhere in the ballpark of 60 to $65 a square foot, I believe is what we're looking at on a general price with the FRP panels. Um, and that's us doing the scan, that's us doing the engineering, that's us preparing all of the panels, providing all of the support. So that's the full price. Let's see.
But one thing, because they're
Hmm.
asking for the manholes, we're having the base liner, or for the rehabilitation, we're having the flex liner. So the FRP panel is specific for big wastewater structures, or
Large.
any
Hmm.
or anything special.
Yeah.
If we're having a normal manhole, we can use our classic base liner or the flex liner for trenchless rehabilitation. We don't need to use the FRP panels. The FRP panels mainly used in really big wastewater structures.
Right. So, possibly, if you would like to ask me questions maybe about some of our other liners and how that pricing might work, I'd be more than happy to talk about it with any of you. There's just so many different options. And since we were talking mainly about the FRP panels today, I kind of had that pricing in my mind. But please feel free to reach out to me if if you're thinking a certain height, certain diameter, I'd be happy to get that for you to give you some ballpark ideas. So here's another one. If you take a 48-inch with a 48-inch channel, 10-foot tall section, flat top, sealed off, what would be the approximate cost? So, mm, so maybe let me do this because there seem to be a lot of questions about pricing and it can get really sticky. Um, when we do our follow-up email, I'll try to get some more information in that email that might help you all out. And then again, if you have specific questions, feel free to get back to me on that. So, can we use this FRP technology for large tunnels? That's a great question. Do you want to talk about that, Matthias?
Yes, so we can use the FRP technology for any kind of large structures, no matter of the shape. So if there are small flumes or really big structures or any tunnels or whatever, we can use the FRP panels for this. Yes.
Okay, great. Also, to clarify the question about backfill grouting being an option. So the backfill grouting is not an optional step, but the use of Predl's specific grout that we sell, um, you do have the option to use a different grout. If you chose to use a different grout, we would obviously recommend that you use something that has very similar properties to the grout that we're using. You need it to be highly flowable, to have that high PSI, the quick set time. Um, because if you use something more traditional, we may again develop pockets or voids behind the liner, which we want to avoid. Um, and you can also slow down the installation process if you're having to wait really long periods of time for each level to set up. Um, Let's see. Again, any other questions about pricing? I'm going to try to address all that in the follow-up.
I want to
Um,
talk about the crowd again. So
yes.
we are not offering an optional crowd, but if you want to use an optional crowd, we can check if the crowd is good enough to use it. But we can't guarantee that everything works as fine as with our crowd. So we recommend our crowd, but if you want to use another crowd, we can check it.
Yeah.
But yeah, then it's not on our side if the crowd is failing.
Okay. Thank you. So surface preparation before installation. Um, Surface preparation, I think with our rehab products, which I'm most familiar with as opposed to what other people have, but my understanding is our surface prep is far easier than most other systems. Yes, we do need to remove existing liners from the wall and do a good pressure wash of the structure. But we're cleaning it to get rid of any loose materials because we're not trying to create any chemical bonds. Again, all we have to do is get the loose stuff off. So we get the loose stuff off, cleaned out, and then our structure is ready for rehab. Would you agree with that, Matthias?
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
great. FRP panels do not require formwork, correct? Correct. Our
Correct. Yeah.
panels are structural. Um, We're installing them one row at a time, backfilling, going on to the next row. Absolutely no formwork needed for these. A question about how can this system rehabilitate existing benching and round manholes? So Matthias, if we're talking round manholes and we've got benching, um, our flex liner for rehab
Mhm.
can go up to about 8 foot in diameter. Our flex liner, and that's another rehab system, but that's available. And we literally, and you can see it in the banner behind me. That is a base liner that is made out of our flexible polyurea. It's been folded, tied up with a ratchet strap, and it's literally being lowered through the hole of a manhole. So I don't know if we would necessarily, I don't know if that flex liner base would ever be used with FRP panels, but I can tell you that if not, then the core protect with that flex liner base would certainly, um, you know, be an option. So I think we have a lot of options available to us.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to add anything to that.
Because of our transition strip, what we are also using for pipes, we can use it also with our materials. So if we're having two different materials in one manhole and want to attach them to each other, we can always use this transition strip to have a bonding between different materials. So this is always an option.
Okay, great. Let's see. So are we able to do a cast in place with the panels when the vault is being produced or casted? Um, so I think with this, I think the question is more, we're talking like a new cast in place structure. And if that's the case, Matthias, would we be able to use our panels if somebody is doing a new cast in place vault or structure?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, if it's already cast in place, yes, of course, because we're having an existing structure, and if we're having an existing structure, we can always use the FRP panels. Uh, we mainly use it for the rehabilitation, but we can also use it for new structures. This is no problem.
okay. So on the panels liner, is this only available in polypropylene or is HDPE an option? So our core protect material that we use, is the copolymer polypropylene. Um, we use that primarily because of the compatibility with all the other components we work with on the new construction side, on the rehab side. Um, I am not sure if the panels that are lined, if the PP panels could be done in HDPE. That's something I'm not sure
Yeah,
of.
so on the inside, so the wastewater side of the FRP panel, we can always modify the material on the inside as you prefer. So this is no big problem. If
Okay.
we're having other materials, we can work with them.
Okay. All right. Um, then we have a question. How do you add grout to the ceiling of a buried vault? So uh, this is something that it, we decided to not go into great deal on the presentation just because we felt like it could be complicated and it might be more than people want to hear. So I'm just laughing out loud because somebody's actually asking about that. Um, so, uh, Matthias, do you want to talk about how we handle that top
Yeah,
portion
so
and the options?
normally the top, like the last section, is not completely backfilled of the structure if it's not recommended. But if you want to do this, we can always drill a little hole in the FRP panel and pumping in the grout. And after this, we're closing the hole and laminate it, and then the whole area is backfilled. But we also can use the upper lid and have a little space there to also bring in the crowd because of its flow. And then the top of the structure is also backfilled if it's recommended, but you don't have to.
Thank you. All right. So the last question I see here, what if there are infiltration issues in the existing structure before installation of the FRP panel? So, I know my understanding more on the manhole side is that we really have to have that active infiltration stopped to be able to have a successful rehabilitation. Um, because we run a risk of that grout not wanting to set to its proper PSI if there's too much groundwater coming in. Would that be correct, Matthias?
Yes, this is correct. So if we're having any kind of infiltration, if it's just a little bit, it's not a big issue. But if it's like a bathtub, we always have to stop the infiltration before we're doing the installation of the panels and doing the backfilling. Because if we're not doing this, we're starting to wash out the grout, and this is not what we want to do. So yes, we have to stop the infiltration before we're doing the installation of the FRP panels.
Perfect. All right, so we have another question, and Matthias, I will let you take this one because you were on the job. They want to know how long it took to do the rehab on the large wastewater structure that we went over in the presentation.
So I'm not sure how big this one was here in square foot, how many square foot of panels we had here. But for the big one we showed you in Bullhead, we did it in 6 days with 6 guys. So it's quite fast in my opinion to rehabilitate a big structure like this. So if you're having big structures, 1 up to 2 weeks with a good team is the rehabilitation time.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think we made it through all the questions. Thank you everybody for the positive comments. Um, and your time today. Really, really do appreciate it. Again, we'll be sure to get a follow-up email out to everybody. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly if you have any questions come up later on. Matthias, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
And
and thank everybody for joining us also from my side.
yes, thank you, everybody. I think we have people from the west coast of the US all the way to Austria. So thank you for the worldwide attendance, and hope to see you all on our next webinar. Bye.
Bye.